Hello everyone, welcome in. This is a Creatine Supplementation webinar. Thank you all very much for being here. And before we go ahead and dive into the topic, I just want to introduce myself a little bit, okay? A little bit about myself. My name is Guilherme Guimaraes. I'm currently a dietetic intern at Custom Fit. I'm a nutritionist, and when I'm not talking about food, I love playing soccer, love lifting weights as well. Always talking about food, anyways. But I also love traveling. Whenever I can, I try to squeeze in a trip. And this picture, for example, is south of France, Monaco. All right, a few years ago. Okay, let's go ahead and see our agenda for today. Topics for today: creatine and how does it work, implications of creatine and different types of exercises, creatine and its cognitive impact, dosage and how long it takes to start working, side effects and safety, misinformation, if women should take it or not, supplements and suggestions. It's just how to choose the best supplement out there with so many options in the market. A little disclaimer before we start off with the topic. All the content on this webinar are not medical advice and should be used for informational purpose only. Okay. Let's break down what creatine is. Is a non-essential amino acid, which translates to our body having the ability to break down different amino acids and creating creatine out of them. For the purpose of this webinar, we're going to be going over the supplementation of creatine and not the dietary intake. All the studies, all the contents, they were looking into creatine supplementation and not dietary intake. All right. Where creatine is mostly present in the skeletal muscle, which is our exercising muscle, the muscles we use to do activities with it. And how does it work? Our body rely on ATP as a form of energy, and creatine just helps the body utilizes ATP more efficiently. For the purpose of the muscle, to put in this perspective, if you're able to do 8 reps on a specific exercise with the proper use of creatine, you would be able to make your muscle work better and perhaps start doing 9 to 10 reps. We're now diving into the exercise aspect and how creatine influences on it. For these specific studies, they were looking into strength exercise, more specifically maximal strength, which is that peak of activity. And both of the studies, one study was looking into the upper body, upper limbs strength exercise, more focused on bench press. The other one was looking at the lower limbs, specifically on the squats. And both of them had significant improvement. The upper limbs, as you can see, 5.3% increase in maximum strength, and the lower limbs on 8%. And both of these studies were looking, comparing to a placebo group where there was no creatine supplementation, but they were still doing the same type of exercise. So you can see how the exercise can increase and can impact strength exercise. And that makes sense if you're looking at the behind the scenes of the creatine, where creatine increases your muscle mass, allowing your muscle to create more fibers, which consequently allows you to have more strength on that specific body part. Now looking at different type of sports or exercise, long-term endurance exercise. The studies did not find a positive impact for endurance exercise as much as they did for the strength exercise. And that makes sense because for the strength exercise, creatine impacts the ATP that requires no oxygen. And for the endurance exercise, the ATP that it's used requires oxygen. So relies much more on the individual's capacity of oxygen intake versus the strength exercise requires no oxygen. However, studies found that that could be a huge benefit when comparing to sports where there's a combination of strength exercise and endurance. For example, think about soccer, basketball, tennis, where you got within the sport, you got those bursts of exercise, those bursts of power. Those scenarios, creatine can have a huge impact because then you're using the ATP within the muscle that requires no oxygen on it. All right. It's important to mention that the study that was looking into the endurance exercise said that they might have a negative impact where the increasing muscle, it's going to also elevate your energy requirements, and that elevation of energy requirement may lead to a early fatigue during a endurance activity. Okay. Now diving into the impact of creatine and hypertrophy, like muscle growth. These two studies that we're looking into individuals over 50 years old and individuals under 50 years old. As you can see over there, the individuals under 50 years old, they had an increase in 2.5 pounds of muscle, where the fat mass decreased in 1.6 pounds. And the studies were looking at placebo group, where there was no creatine intake for the placebo, and the exercises were the same for the same period of time. For the individuals over 50 years old, it was more significant than the younger individuals, because they were not just able to maintain weight and muscle mass, they were able to increase by the average of 3 pounds, which at that age is pretty significant. But the highlight, the outstanding of the study was, for me, the recovery aspect, because it can benefit our sports in general and our exercise and activities. If you're looking at what exercise does to your muscle, it stresses your muscle. And essentially, when it's trying to recover, it's trying to synthesize protein back again, so its muscle, it's ready to be used. And what creatine does is the saturation allows to expose to more amino acids, which helps your body synthesize and make protein again, leaving your muscle ready for another activity. And if you think about it from the sports perspective of a high performance person, you're train twice a week, and now you're using creatine and your ability to work 3 times a week that specific muscle on a course of 6 months to a year. You have trained much more than previously when you were not taking creatine. That's going to enhance your performance by a tremendous amount. Diving into the cognitive impact of right now, because ATP is used throughout the whole body, not just skeletal muscle. The emerging studies, it's an emerging field right now. Studies were looking into the impact of creatine and the ATP in the brain, especially cognitive functions. And these studies, they looked into 4 groups, 2 groups, experimental groups of younger individuals and older individuals, and the same ages of placebo, taking no creatine at all. And the highlights of the results were short-term memory and reasoning. However, the study was only 6 weeks. Therefore, they were not able to see any results on the long term, such as long-term memory. And they mentioned that future studies should try to do long-term experiments to see results on the long term of supplementation of creatine. Older adults have a lower baseline than younger adults, therefore they were able to see more benefits. There's more room for improvement if their daily needs are lower, and that's one of the things that they highlighted during the study. So now going to the how long it's going to take for you to start seeing results and how much you should be taking a day. So studies across the board said that 5 grams a day is going to get your results, and the beauty of it, it's that consistency. It's much more important than actually how much you take. There's some studies that indicated that loading phase may be present, and it's entirely optional. And the loading phase is 20 grams for the first week per day, and you can divide that into 4 times a day of 5 grams. And essentially what loading phase is, it's going to saturate that muscle. It's going to fill up your muscle with creatine for that first week, and allowing you to start seeing results much faster than you would just starting with a 5-day a week. However, other studies suggested that because it's much more linked to consistency than how much you take, you're going to start seeing results just as fast without loading phase, with loading phase. So it's entirely optional. It's really up to you if you want to do the loading phase or not. The creatine might be taken with food or without food. Studies have shown no difference when taking with food and without food. And studies also have shown that there is no improvement, or at least no significant improvement, if you take more than 5 grams a day. So there's no need to be overdosing yourself for long periods of time to improve results, and that diet, exercise, and rest matters much more on how fast you're going to see results than the amount of keratin you take. The studies have shown that you can see results as early as 5 days or 6 weeks, and that's where diet, exercise, and rest are going to play a role of how fast you're going to see the results. Now, looking at the safety and side effects of keratin, probably one of the reasons why it's so well studied and why it has been studied for so long throughout the years is like the amount of benefit you get with little to no side effect at all. So this study specifically, they were looking at the 5 gram supplementation of keratin for a period of up to 5 years, and they were also looking at the supplementation of 30 grams a day for 5 days. Essentially, looking at the the loading phase with a heavier loading phase of 30 grams per day for 5 days. What they figured out with for both results, there was no association with kidney impairment or kidney dysfunction at all. What they saw for the 30 gram was that there was an excess urinary excretion or urinary creatinine in their urine, but there was no enough to be linked to a kidney dysfunction or impairment at all. But it's worth mentioning that it was only there for 5 days. They were only analyzed for 5 days. Therefore, there's no study looking into a longer period than 5 days with 30 grams a day. But like I mentioned on the previous slide, studies have shown that more than 5 grams a day has shown no significant improvement, has shown no improvement in performance. Therefore, it's important to note as well that the studies, they did not include people with pre-existing kidney condition or comorbidities, diabetes. So they were looking at athletes and healthy individuals only. Now looking into misinformation, and probably the two that are mostly out there is the water retention and hair loss. So the water retention studies look into it, and essentially it's just a regular process of the body. It's called like osmotic pressure, which because there's a saturation of keratin in the muscle, that's going to draw more water to the muscle. But that was essentially linked to the loading phase, and once the loading phase was over, the water was going to be excreted as well. So there is no issue with the water retention whatsoever. With the hair loss, it was one study that was later on found out that was a fraudulent study, and what the study was trying to link the DHT, which is associated with hair loss, and the use of keratin. But many recent studies, looked into that, and they figured out that there was no link at all with keratin and hair loss. Now diving into the impact of keratin in women. This study specifically looked into 2 groups of women, where one was supplementing on keratin and the other wasn't, to see how that would affect them. It's important to notice that they did not look into pregnant women. It was only premenopause and postmenopause. And essentially what they figured out was on the premenopause woman, there was an increase in weight. And they figured out it was mainly due to that loading phase and water retention. There was no association with fat accumulation at all. And the postmenopause woman, which is interesting, they figured out that the supplementation of keratin paired with resistance training, essentially strength training, helped them maintain their lean mass, which is crucial, especially at that age. And one other aspect, the research pointed out that the dosage of 5 grams a day, it's the same for biological male and biological women, so they can do the same supplementation administration that would get them results as well. So diving into how to choose the best supplement for you, what you should be looking for when you're looking for keratin, and essentially look for keratins that have only one ingredient. They either have keratin or they have monohydrokeratin on it, which is a form of keratin that the body utilizes. If they have multiple ingredients, parentheses with a bunch of additions, just try to avoid those. And one other way to figure it out is there's a website called NSF, which is the National Sanitation Foundation. Look for the seal over there on the slide. You can see the little blue seal on the bottom left corner over there. It means that they've been tested. The companies have been tested for the ingredients that they use, the quality of the facility, the sanitation. So it's a way to figure it out and buy credible supplements in general. And one other aspect that it's really interesting to mention that pills and powder, our body processes them the same. Therefore, it's really a personal choice if which option you want to use. And I like to say that the best option is the one that you can consistently take on. So looking to the bottom line of this webinar, I created this table over here just comparing a few benefits of keratin and its drawbacks as well, if any, and comparing to different types of sports. It's important to mention that keratin is well studied. It's the supplement that's been studied the most out there, and it's been proved effective for muscle growth, for strength, and there is emerging evidence on cognitive impact as well. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be seeing a lot more studies in the next few years. But while it's safe, and the study suggests that it has no side effects, it's important to mention that if you have any pre-existing conditions, you have to seek medical advice, talk to your doctor before supplementing on it. All right, everyone, wrapping up our webinar on keratin supplementation. I hope you can make some of this information useful to you. If you decide to dive into more different supplements or nutritional guidance, please feel free to contact us at Custom Fit. Scan their QR code. You're going to be able to talk to one of us. We'd be more than happy to help you on your journey with nutrition. All right. Thank you very much for listening to me, and I'll have a great day. Thank you.